Hey, what's going on everyone? I'm Neo Auto, and for today's video, we're going to be discussing the 2020 Ford Bronco. Back in 2017, Ford made the huge announcement it would be bringing back the Bronco to reclaim its title as the off-road king. Now, that's a pretty bold statement, and it raises a lot of questions. What will this new Bronco look like? What type of engine will it have? And will it come with a manual transmission? These are just some of the questions that fans have. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you the latest news on the Ford Bronco, and I'm also going to give you my thoughts on it. So to kick things off, let's take a look at the Ford Bronco's history.
The new Ford Bronco for 1966. A rough, tough, go-anywhere, climb-anything sports car.
In 1966, Ford released the Bronco, a new 4x4 designed to compete with the Jeep CJ. During this time, the four-wheel drive market was becoming increasingly popular, and Ford wanted a piece of the action. The first generation was available in 3 different styles: a wagon, a roadster, and even a pickup. The Bronco proved itself to be a hit, and the first generation would last for 11 years.
Name of Bronco, a new V8 Bronco at your Ford dealer.
Get away in a Ford four-wheel drive.
Now, the first generation Bronco wasn't that large of a vehicle. You can see how much smaller it was compared to a full-size pickup. But in 1978, Ford decided to beef up the Bronco for the next generation. It now came with a single body style, and its appearance was very similar to the F100 pickup. You see, the 4x4 market desired larger vehicles. The new Bronco came standard with a V8 engine, and it was starting to become more luxurious. But in just 2 years, the next generation Bronco was released. Now, although it looks pretty similar to the previous generation, the front suspension was revised to make it better on the road, and a V6 option was brought back, giving the Bronco better fuel economy. But in 1984, Ford took things a step further.
It's the call of the wild, and Ford answers with Bronco 2, a real kick in four-wheeling.
In 1984, Ford released the Bronco 2. It was a smaller, more compact Bronco, much like the original, and it was based off of the Ranger platform.
Drive off in a Ford Bronco 2 today.
Although they were fun vehicles and got decent gas mileage, the Bronco 2 wasn't very safe. Because of design flaws, it had a tendency to roll over. But despite this, the Bronco 2 remained one of the most popular Ford vehicles in the 1980s.
See the Ford Bronco 2. It's a brand new kick.
Now, the Bronco 2 was doing well, but Ford needed to update its full-size Bronco. So in 1987, the full-size Bronco went into its 4th generation.
The best never ends.
The new design was slightly more aerodynamic, and it looked drastically different from the previous generation. The interior was also redesigned, and for the first time ever, the Bronco was available with push-button 4-wheel drive. Now at this point, there was starting to become a reoccurring trend. Since the 2nd generation, every Bronco looked very similar to the F-Series pickups. Here's a picture of the Bronco and the F-150 side by side. Can you tell which one is which? On the left is the F-150, and on the right is the Bronco. By 1992, the Bronco was going into its 5th generation. The new design was more rounded compared to the boxy previous generation. It was also more aerodynamic and safe. During this time period, the Bronco was a leader in its segment. In 1991, it outsold all competitors combined.
Bronco has been the #1 selling vehicle in its market segment for the past 13 years.
It seemed like things were going well for the Bronco. It was selling reasonably well and had been in production since the 1960s. But unfortunately, the end was near. But why? Contrary to popular belief, O.J. Simpson's infamous Bronco chase was not the reason for the Bronco's discontinuation. In the same year, the Bronco sales increased. So what was the actual reason?
Get away from it all in the new Explorer from Ford.
Well, as it turns out, 4-door SUVs were starting to become more popular. Vehicles like the Explorer, introduced in 1991, worked well for families. If we look back at the chart, we can see that Bronco sales surged over 60,000 units in 1989. But within the next 2 years, sales had dropped by more than half. This was a huge drop, and Ford took notice of it. They understood that large vehicles were still popular, but customers now preferred 4 doors. And although the Explorer helped to supply this need, it wasn't a full-size SUV. This left Ford with 2 options: options: continue Bronco production despite the dwindling sales, or replace it with a new 4-door full-size SUV. The result was the latter. In 1996, Ford officially discontinued the Bronco after 30 years of production, and they replaced it with the new Expedition in 1997. It was a 4-door full-size SUV, and it offered third-row seating.
Ford Expedition, the only way to get there.
It was the end of an era. The Bronco was no more. The Ford Explorer and the Expedition are still in production to this day. But the question has always lingered: will Ford ever bring back the Bronco? The Ford Bronco had become an American icon, and it was sad to see it go. But fortunately, the story doesn't end here. Around the turn of the millennium, auto manufacturers were releasing vehicles with classic design cues, and Ford was no exception. They had brought back the Thunderbird, the GT, and completely redesigned the Mustang. I would say the 2005 Mustang is what really got me into cars. Its retro design with modern cues made it extremely popular, and because of its success, other auto manufacturers brought back classic designs. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, in 2004, Ford released a new Bronco concept. Its design was heavily influenced by the first generation Bronco. It had the round headlights, a short wheelbase, and that classic squared off roof. It's easy to see this concept was ahead of its time. Details like Bronco and Ford written across the front and back are very similar to what we see with the current Raptor. And look at the bezel around the headlights. Doesn't that look very similar to the 2018 Mustang headlights? Needless to say, people were thrilled that Ford had not given up on the Bronco. But much like the Jeep Scrambler concept, it was never released. It wouldn't be until 13 years later that Ford finally announced the Bronco was coming back.
We're bringing back the Ford Bronco in 2020.
This was a huge announcement. After years of waiting, the Bronco is finally coming back. But there are so many questions. What will it look like? What type of engine will it have? How many doors will it have? Will it have a manual transmission? These are just some of the many questions people have. So first, what will it look like? We know the new Bronco is going to be built on the Ranger platform. This means it won't be a full-size SUV like the previous generation. Originally, rumors were flying around that the Bronco was going to look like the Everest. The Everest is a mid-size SUV based off of the Ranger, and although there's nothing wrong with the vehicle, it just doesn't fit the Bronco name. Fortunately, this was cleared up when Ford's former chief technical officer said the new Bronco will be a unique vehicle and not a revision of the Everest. He went on to say it will most likely be smaller than the original Bronco, but bigger than the Bronco 2. Now take a look at this. It's a Bronco teaser image released by Ford, and from the looks of this image, I would say the Ford executive was right. Look at the body lines of the vehicle. It has the same boxy look as the original, and it even appears to have a spare tire mounted to the back. I placed the concept Bronco over top of this image, and as you can see, it's very similar in shape. This is such great news. It shows the Bronco is going to stay true to its roots. But will it be available with 2 doors? Well, there's information on that too. Ford's executive vice president, Jim Farley, made the statement that the Bronco will come in 2-door and 4-door variants. This is a big deal for Bronco fans. It needs 4 doors in order to be commercially successful, but by keeping the 2-door variant, it stays true to its heritage. Now, after Ford released this teaser image, the people at Motor Trend came up with this render. And based off of everything we've heard from Ford employees, and by closely examining the teaser image, it's very well possible this is what the Bronco will look like. It seems to be a combination of the 2004 concept and the new teaser image profile. It's certainly a good render, and I hope the new Bronco looks like this. But what about the powertrain? Will the new Bronco come with the V8? Or how about a manual transmission? Well, apparently, a source has told Jalopnik that the new Bronco could get a 7-speed manual transmission. The new transmission is referred to as the MT88, and it will most likely be paired with a 2.7-liter Ecoboost V6 engine. I know, a V6, but we'll get to that in a minute. The Bronco's main competition is going to be the Jeep Wrangler, which just so happens to offer a manual transmission. Now put yourself in Ford's position. You're competing with the Wrangler, an extremely popular vehicle that offers an automatic and manual transmission. Wouldn't it make sense to offer your vehicle with a manual as well? This could very well be the deciding factor for many people. And what about the engine? Can we expect the Bronco to have a V8 option? Well, we're not 100% sure. Considering the Bronco is based off of the Ranger platform, it could very well come out with a 2.3-liter 4-cylinder, but they could also have a V6 option available. We know there's going to be a hybrid version, but we're not sure about the V8. If you stop and think about it, the Wrangler is available with a 4-cylinder and a 6-cylinder. Considering how much Ford is trying to compete with the Wrangler, it would make most sense for them to come out with a 4-cylinder option and a 6-cylinder option. So there you have it. What do you guys think about the 2020 Bronco? Do you think it's going to be a success for Ford? Will it beat the Wrangler? Let me know in the comments below. I'm Neo Auto, and thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel today if you'd like to keep up to date with the latest car news, and I'll see you real soon.